Hi, good afternoon. This is going to be my responsive classroom management portfolio. My name is Tanya Ibarra. Now, my why, I think my overall why as to why I want to become a teacher is just because I want to be that educator that changes the kids' lives. I want the students to feel valued, safe, and capable of being successful, which is something that I lacked when I grew up, and I want to be that teacher that is different and makes that mark for the students for the positive. I want my students to walk into my classroom and know that I respect them as individuals, that I'm there to support them and to encourage them because I want them to grow both academically and emotionally. Now, for my philosophy, I have it here a little bit and you could pause to read it. Overall, I think just my my overall philosophy is just I want to be a bilingual educator. And I've always thought of like, oh, I want to help them, feel like their identity is important, like that I value them overall as an individual, their culture, their background, their experiences and identities. And I think this is overall important because I want to be there to support them emotionally. I want them to feel accepted, like I'm there to push them for better things, for greater things. And I think as I learn about my students, as I take them in as a whole, it isn't it's just a powerful tool as I'm going to be an educator because yes, I'm making sure that linguistic need is being met, but I'm also making sure that when it comes to classroom management, I take all those things that I know about the students, I'm building those relationships and I'm building that respect with them, and that's going to help me when it comes to solving conflicts or addressing certain issues or problems. Now, I want to go on to the classroom rules consequence management plan. Here are some of the classroom rules that I have, and overall, these are the ones that I want to make sure that I do these in the class as a classroom meeting, and we have statements there where it's like we will, not just them. I don't want them to feel like they're complying to something or they sound negative. Making sure that I have them in Spanish as well, right? I want them to sound positive, and it's things that we could all try to do. And I like the thing where it says we will try our best, because not every day is going to be perfect. We're not going to be angels every day, but it's overall about trying our overall best. Now, for consequences and management plans, I think it's important, to yes, have those consequences, just remind the students about certain things. Now, one thing is just I want them to also know what they did wrong. I want them to also understand if there's something greater going on be with them, within them, like is something wrong? Is there something not being met? Is there something going on at home? Like, do they feel a certain way? I want them to know how to label that emotion that they feel and how to self-regulate. So just like, mindful minute, or I need some time to sit down. I need, to go to the corner and, you know, so I think it's important for me as an educator to have those things as well. And I want to take in consideration, like this behavior strategy. It says, are they doing it for escape, for attention, tangible, sensory? There's certain things that could cause a certain behavior, and not just, I don't want to be the teacher that just consequence, 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 and just get mad, written up, write the kids up. Because no, I feel like I could help the students with that. Now, procedures and routines call to attentions. I really love the call to attention right now in my residency. I use the hola hola and they write like Coca-Cola. And this is a great way to get their attention rather than yelling like, hey, class, like be quiet, and I think it's important to have those little cute things. I already do use the hand signals. It's important, to keep the class safe, know where everybody's at, create less distractions, and then just overall rules, and here they doesn't necessarily I know for the materials and technology, it doesn't necessarily say rules, it says technology promise, like promises that we're gonna keep, materials, take care of me. We want them to take care of the things. At the rug, at the carpet, I think it's important, that they know the certain expectations that they have at carpet. And then also I like the one with the choices for sitting down. Sometimes we get so fixated and like sit down crisscross applesauce. But sometimes I wouldn't like to sit down that way. So it's, giving them those options. Now for communication, I would like to use Class Dojo, where they easy communication or remind with the parents. And then I would love to have weekly newsletters to send out to the parents, to let them know, keep them involved, It's important to have that sense of community with them, and then the positive behavior notes home because I think I would much rather give a good phone call to a parent than a bad one. Although, yes, parents do need to stay in communication for undesirable behaviors, but I think it's important to have that positive reinforcement by sending those notes to the parents. Now, classroom environment. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't think two pictures uploaded. But the top two pictures were a calming corner. And overall, I think it's important for my classroom. I want my classroom to be a great learning environment. I want them to feel like they could just come here and learn, not where they're being tortured or forced to work. I want them to feel happy, you know, to lift themselves up. We have those circle times where we get to talk about how we feel. I want them to see their work up. I want them to feel calm when they come in. When we need to have those circle times in the morning, then we're going to do so. And here I wrote some things that I want to have in my classroom that I overall do right now in my residency, which is my circle time. We have a circle time. We talk about how we feel. We check in. We learn how to label our emotions, right? We talk about how we could regulate, if we feel a certain way. And also, I think it's important to have those voice levels, where we know how to talk, if we could scream or we could whisper. And I overall want to get to know my students really well. And overall, I really I want to care about my students. I want to have those relationships with them. And yes, I want to have that positive reinforcement. And I think overall, right now, the biggest thing to me was just having that social emotional learning. I want them to know how to label the way they feel, how to regulate themselves, how to express themselves. Because, yes, even me in my grown age, I don't know how to express myself sometimes or communicate the way I feel. And I think it's very important, that we grow up to be empathetic people, that we know how to cope with the way that we feel, right? Healthy cope strategies. And just overall, I want to provide that classroom environment that is overall the best for students for their needs overall. Thank you.